Hey y'all, it's Riser here, and today we will be reacting to the JJK Disaster Curses versus the Demon Slayer Upper Moons and see who wins.
Two popular battle shonen, two villain groups, and one winner. Today, I'll be pitting the.
I think that the Disaster Curse got it because, Mahito is Jogo the Meteor was crazy. Mahito, if you can't touch his soul, you can't damage him. In their domains, I got Disaster Curses winning.
The Disaster Curse spirits of Jujutsu Kaisen up against Demon Slayer's Upper Moons in order to determine who would come out on top. If you checked out my last two videos discussing Muzan versus Jujutsu Kaisen and Sukuna versus Demon Slayer, you know what you're in for. First, I'll give a brief breakdown of both sides' physical stats and abilities before discussing how these variables
My
and
boy
characters
Kaza.
interact, and most importantly, who would win. Starting by going over
Okay,
the
so there are spoilers here. So, you have been warned, there are spoilers in this video.
Upper Moons is relatively easy. Having discussed Demon Slayer so frequently in the past few weeks makes this a pretty simple task because they by and large scale to a majority of the high-end feats that this verse has to offer. Speed-wise, even low-end Upper Moons like Daki and Gyutaro should be massively hypersonic. As we see in their battle with Uzui, Daki's able to react to the explosive launched by the Hashira and shield her brother before they reach
My
him.
boy
As the
Gyutaro.
lowest ranked demons in this category, with the exception of Kaigaku due to his unique circumstances, this means that every demon that'll be fighting is at least 200 plus times faster than sound, as the calc I'm referencing concludes. This isn't all though, as Hatengu is shown summoning bolts of lightning that Mitsuri, well before developing her mark and going through Hashira training, is capable of avoiding rather consistently. Mitsuri can be reacted to by Hatengu at multiple points in
Her
the
sword
fight,
is so
meaning that not only
weird,
should
like,
he scale
the way
relatively
it
quickly and
bends.
casually avoid bolts of lightning, but Upper Moons 1 through 3 should be well beyond that. This is pretty consistent with Akaza, Doma, and Hojo's
Zohakuten.
displays during the Infinity Castle arc as well. Not only are they capable of defeating multiple Hashira level fighters at the same time, but they perform this well against characters that have become unquantifiably stronger in the interim. Slayer marks on their own increase the user's strength by several times, and while I can't put an exact number on how much stronger the training made them, the top 3 demons discussed today should make lightning timers look like snails by comparison. Gyoko, Hatengu, and Nakime should all at least be lightning timers, and Gyutaro and Daki would be well below that.
This
But
fight
they'll
was
all be
insane.
100
That's
times
peak
faster than
fight.
sound based on the previously
Peak
established
animation
reasoning.
from
Now, it's often argued
Ufotable.
to shut down this line of logic that Muzan got caught in an explosion, and because he scales above all of the Upper Moons and Hashira, this necessitates that his scaling is invalid. The problem with this as a rebuttal, however, is that Muzan simply wasn't expecting combat in this moment. This is a prime example of an off-guard showing. Ubuyashiki was doing all he could to sit upright, and with his senses, Muzan didn't detect any Hashira in the area. Getting caught in an explosion in a moment of hubris and surprise doesn't discount the pretty consistent feats shown before and
That is true. He
after
did get
this. This is
sneaked,
just
but
consistent with Muzan's
it's
own
Muzan. He
policies and
deserves it.
statements, as he says that he expected something, but not an explosion that would engulf not only himself, but Ubuyashiki, his family, and the entire estate. As far as I'm concerned, attempting to limit Demon Slayer based on this feat is akin to scaling all of Dragon Ball up to this point to bullet level because an off-guard and rusty Goku took some damage from a 9 mil. At worst, it's an outlier that goes against a general trend of speed scaling shown in the series, and in the best, most reasonable scenario, it's just a villain letting his guard down in a moment where he thought victory was assured. Strength and durability wise, the Upper Moons should scale anywhere between town and large town level. This is based on Gyutaro's destruction of the Red Light District with his Blood Blades. When calculated, this feat is shown to require enough energy to destroy a large town, and as the weakest Upper Moon, Gyutaro would defer to every other character in terms of output. One could argue that this level of strength is only achievable with Blood Demon Arts, and I wouldn't actually say that's too far-fetched, at least in Upper Moon 6's case. During the battle in the Red Light District, Gyutaro's Blood Blade attacks are shown to pose a significantly greater threat than anything else pulled off. Even the Slayers capable of cutting him and his sister down are surprised consistently by these. Physically, you can make the argument that they aren't quite as strong, but Demon Arts at the higher level are so integrated to an Upper Moon's fighting style the distinction between that and their physicality is pretty irrelevant here. Durability-wise, they should be pretty comparable to the attack potency of their Blood Demon arts, as the Demon Slayers they fight are capable of warding off their attacks physically,
Another
require an
amazing
even
moment.
greater level of exertion to cut their enemies down. In the unique abilities and hacks department, the upper moons are actually quite diverse. I'll dive into the specifics of characters that have some interesting win cons when I go over the outcome of this fight, but for the time being, the basics of being a demon
Gyoko just
pretty
got
easy
murked
to
by
understand.
Meteor in this fight.
Infinite stamina, incredible regeneration speed, and unique Blood Demon arts are par for the course with demons of this caliber. These arts can achieve anything from spatial manipulation to control of the elements, but like I said, I'll talk about how that factors into everything in a bit. Before that, let's talk about what the Disaster Curses got going on. Unlike the upper
Here we
moon,
go.
these curses are the mid-game antagonists, meaning in a lot of ways they don't get access to the higher tiered scaling that many late-game JJK characters do. This affects them most negatively when discussing and scaling their speed in particular. Jujutsu Kaisen is already a verse that's notoriously slow relative to other battle shonen of its ilk, but what you're able to realistically and consistently scale mid-tier characters like Mahito and Jogo to, even when being generous, is kinda sad. You have some okay feats and calcs to pull on if you reference Yuji's dodging of piercing blood, and scale that back to Mahito, who fights and performs extremely well against an even more locked-in Itadori with the help of Todo and Boogie Woogie. Jogo should at least be comparable to this due to being able to perception blitz characters like Maki and Nanami, who, while slower than Yuji, shouldn't have a gap that massive. Maybe you'd also want to throw Hanami in there.
Boogie Woogie, my boy Todo.
Against Yuji and Todo in the Goodwill event, although that's a bit dubious due to Yuji's steady and continuous
Jumping that boy.
of the manga. This almost embarrassingly gives the Disaster Curses a high end of being vaguely faster than sound, anywhere from 1 to 10 times if you wanted a numerical estimate. Feats like Hikari reacting to lightning or Sukuna dodging EM waves, regardless of the ambiguity of both showings, wouldn't scale back to any of them for one of two reasons. The first is found in the Hikari example, as it's pretty much impossible to link these two in any way. Kashimo doesn't fight anyone that scales to them, and neither does Hikari. The second lies with Sukuna, and that's just because even if you do believe Sukuna is fast enough to react to light, he's so much faster than any of the characters being discussed that it's honestly an irrelevant piece of trivia. Now, you could go one step further and really hammer home some downplay if for some reason you had a deep-seated hatred for this group of curses. For example, the fact that Kamo calls Curse Naoya faster than anything, and Curse Naoya's top speed statement puts him at a whopping Mach 3, that could certainly limit the back half of the group like Dagon and Hanami. And while I usually argue against the validity and consistency of this statement, in this instance there isn't really much ground to stand on. Neither the Curse of the Sea nor the Earth.
The 24 frames or something like that.
All consistency into question.
Doggone.
It's even worse if you use Naoya's base form performance against Yuji and subsonic plus projection sorcery statement in his fight with Maki. As in his introduction battles, through the use of his technique, he's able to
They were
bullet
boxing
speed
again,
Yuji,
Choso and
but Choso
Itadori.
is significantly stronger than the version he fought, and goes on to have a statement placing his max speed at vaguely faster than sound, which is corroborated by another statement from Maki later in the manga. What's crazy is, due to the way Gege went about writing it, you can't even use a disingenuous but possible uncapped, well, faster than sound doesn't just mean 1 times faster, because the fact that Maki was caught off guard by what's said to be a Mach 3 attack means his original speed was well below that. Oh my god, Gege, when I catch you for doing this to my series, man. Anyway, the
Amen.
subsonic stuff is less consistent due to piercing blood feeds being pretty abundant, with Naoya even having some himself, but I emphasize this speed scaling in the hopes that everyone makes note of the quantities mentioned for both parties. If the Disaster Curses are able to make anything shake, it won't be because they're blitzing their opponents. Strength and output wise, the Curse Spirits are able to put up a bit more of a fight. Even up till the end of the series, someone like Jogo in particular at his strongest should still be a pretty high tier character.
The meteor is doing crazy damage.
Not only does Kusumi Kusakabe note the power of Sukuna's fire arrow by mentioning the fact that it was capable of exercising Jogo, implying anything capable of doing that would cook everyone present, but Jogo's maximum meteor also could have achieved some real damage on 15-finger Sukuna, a feat that from a narrative standpoint is pretty damn impressive. We'll circle back to how important this is in a bit, but for the time being, just keep that in mind. For the other disasters, a pretty comfortable low end is the city block.
Oh, the flower. I forgot their name.
Of Mahito shaking Shibuya with his curse technique application, and this is something he pulls off so casually in such a weakened state, I'm pretty fine with arguing that all of the other disaster curses should scale. Because of their immense cursed energy, you could also argue that in terms of output and destructive capabilities, they punch above their weight class, even relative to the time they left the series. Mahito's instant spirit body of distorted killing, for example, should be significantly more durable and powerful in close quarters than anything that Itadori shows up until his power-up against Sukuna in Chapter 214. Even while both severely nerfed and running on fumes, Mahito is so much tougher than Yuji that the only way to take him down would be a Black Flash with 100% of his energy dedicated to it, something he could only pull off due to Todo's brilliance and consistent assistance in this battle. The fact that Mahito can even survive an attack from an exponentially more powerful Yuji would probably push him into those higher tiers resilience-wise as well. Jogo is another case of punching up, and the main reason comes from his max meteor. This move is often shrugged off in scaling conversations because of its speed, and the fact that both Panda and Kusakabe survived the attack after running for their lives, but the issue with both of these points is pretty simple. In the case of speed, Jogo could just pair his maximum technique with his domain to ensure it lands as intended. We see Yorozu do
the domain too, sure hit.
The only reason Jogo doesn't implement this strategy for himself is likely because he fears losing a clash to Sukuna. In terms of power, not only is Kusakabe strong enough to deflect Kenjaku's maximum technique point blank with a simple domain, but Panda just loses one of his cores outright because of the impact of this technique, which is, in his case, technically a death. So attempting to downscale it based on their survival is pretty silly. In any case, calculations regarding the output of Jogo's technique based on the tremors place him at large town level, outright the most impressive level of calculable strength for the cluster of curses. You can, however, take it a step further when looking into a statement made about this ability in the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbook, in which the capacity to completely incinerate a town is attributed to this technique. Why does this matter? Simple. The energy required to turn something to ash versus vaguely destroy or damage it is significantly greater. For example, say Mike Tyson punches you in the chest. After your bones start crunching like a bag of chips, chances are you're gonna be seeing your deity of choice. If I punch you in the chest and every cell in your body turns into dust scattering in the wind, despite us both giving your family something to mourn, my punch would be a lot stronger. The same logic applies here, and when calculated out, Jogo's maximum meteor gets to country levels of attack potency. Definitely something you want to hear if you put your money on the disaster curses.
Like I did.
Talking about the demons, I'll save the specifics of each disaster curse's relevant hacks for the actual outcome portion of the video, but the broad strokes of it are pretty simple and kind of commonly well known. As curses, they all have potent regeneration factors, insanely deep wells of cursed energy, specific techniques, and domains that they can expand to entrap their foes and bombard them with lethal can't-miss attacks. With both parties being properly assessed and scaled, it's time to get down to business. Let's talk about the outcome of the upper moons versus the disaster curses.
Yeah, it gotta be disaster curses.
Battle, both sides have access to something that could give them the edge in a fight, and those circumstances will factor into this equation quite heavily. The question lies in which set of advantages matters the most. On the side of the demons, a few things are true. The first, and honestly most important thing, is that they're faster. A lot faster. So much faster, it's hard to even put into words. For all intents and purposes, just imagine the disaster curses are all fighting characters that are closer to Gojo and Sukuna in performance than they are to them. Between you and me, they're realistically faster, but just so you can have a little bit of a visual. Even the low enders like Daki and Gyutaro would be dozens of times faster than them, and this gap only widens further as you go up the chain of command. The second advantage is that every demon here is practically immortal. I know people hate the Nichiren and Sun argument when discussing Crossroads battles, but even if you ignore both of those a bit unfairly, the bare minimum amount of damage required to kill these demons would be a beheading or complete obliteration of the body. Anything short of that, and they're going to be regenerating from it rather quickly. And their innate durability, speed, and insane regen will make completely destroying them pretty tough. The third major advantage is that they have 2 more combatants in the disaster curses. 3 if you separate Gyutaro and Daki. So the sanctity of a one-on-one is far from guaranteed. This is all to say that
Okay.
Jujutsu Curses have their work cut out for them, but all hope isn't inherently lost. These guys have advantages as well. For starters, they can all probably survive direct contact with upper moons by way of external durability and their own healing
The
factors.
domains are going to help them
They
too.
have to cope with the speed difference. They also have a Jogo, someone who, when
The
using at that
maximum
output,
mirror.
has
Yeah.
one-shot potential, not just for one demon, but for the entire group in one go. The difference in output and durability here is just as massive as it was in the speed department, only in this case, in the curse's favor. Likewise, Mahito has one-shot potential through the use of Idle Transfiguration, something that can bypass conventional durability.
R.I.P. Nanami.
And the final point worth noting for these curses is one we all know and love, say it with me, domain expansions. The ability when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen cross-verse battles, and something that gives the universe a shot at a fight here. I'm gonna be honest with you though. Out of the 3 recent Demon Slayer versus Jujutsu Kaisen videos I've made this past month, this is the one that is the most one-sided. The upper moons absolutely abuse the disaster curse spirits.
There's just no way.
Actually, kinda gross. With the exception of Mahito,
Nah, bruh.
these guys have the durability to withstand several vaguely town-level opponents just
There's
raining
just
down
no,
attacks
bro.
from any angle.
There's no way that happens. 'Cause I thought if you couldn't touch Mahito's soul, you can't do damage. And then Jogo, the meteor is wiping a lot of them out. The domains are going to carry them as well. I don't agree with that, bruh. I still got disaster curses.
Faster than they can defend themselves. Sure, Jogo, Hanami, Dagon won't get one shot, but getting hit with attacks that are at the peak of your durability over and over and over again, some of which are going to have hacks imbued into them, certainly isn't going to be good for their health. In all honesty, you throw a Kaza at Hanami, Dagon, Jogo, obviously base form, and Mahito, and 3 of them drop dead the moment his combat compass appears on the floor. The only reason there's a survivor
There's no way.
is because Mahito specifically won't die unless you run him out of curse energy or attack his soul directly. But that really won't be an issue here because demons have unlimited stamina. You may be wondering, oh, what about the domain? Sure, Dagon and Hanamis won't do too much, but surely Jogo and Mahito can make something work with theirs. And you know what? Yeah, you'd be right. If Mahito or Jogo opened their domains, and if they got their strongest techniques off, anyone in that barrier dies. Jogo's Max Meteor sends them back to their ancestors, and Auto Transfiguration turns them into more cursed creatures than they already are. The problem is that all of what I just said is a big, a massive, a humongous
If
some of these upper moons, like Kokushibo, Akaza, Daki, and Gyutaro, probably just immediately go for a blitz attempt and end the fight. And it's not like any of their opposition can even stop them. Mahito would survive a blitz attempt for obvious reasons, but even in the event he does get enough breathing room to open his domain, he'd have to catch all of the upper moons in his domain at one time if he hopes to win. He's not like Gojo or Sukuna. Multiple expansions in quick succession is not in the cards for him. So anything but a complete reversal spells his eventual defeat. The funny thing is that someone like Gyoko in his strongest form could probably beat Mahito without all of the fanfare of wearing him down if he decided to bring out his fist punch, a punch that, kind of like the name would entail, turns you into a fish if you get hit by it. Although, I will admit, this is just a battle of who brings out their trump card first. Gyoko is kind of an idiot. Mahito typically doesn't open with the domain, so results may vary. In any case, the only feasible win con lies in Mahito turning the tables on all of the upper moons simultaneously and transfiguring them in his domain. A possibility, sure, but with someone shrewd and vigilant like Kokushibo who has access to the see-through world, or Akaza whose battle compass, which reacts instinctively to bloodlust and battle spirit, he might be continuously cut down before the technique even launches. Now, I've been in the game long enough to know how this goes, right? All the Demon Slayer fans are happy, and all the JJK fans, at least the ones who wanted the curses to win, are wondering where I went wrong in my scaling.
That
or
is true.
interpretations, so we'll address some common talking points. One that I get a lot, is that Kanroji's lightning dodging feat is invalid because it's not real lightning. Based on the anime, we can dispute this pretty easily, as it's clear that the lightning is replicating the cloud to ground movement that gives lightning its speed. But even if you disagree with this idea for whatever reason, it really doesn't matter because we have the Daki calc. Being 200 times faster than sound is so far and above what a generous interpretation of the disaster curses can do that a blitz is all but guaranteed no matter how you slice it. Now, the other big thing that I saw a lot in the comments of my last video was about Dagon of all people. It seems that JJK fans have gotten it in their head that Dagon creates a sun when he opens his domain, but like, does he? Sure, it's light inside, but we never see a clear indication that there's an actual star created in the process. You may refer to this panel when trying to back up your point, but there are plenty of examples of Gege just highlighting a particular point on a page or panel with screen tones to direct the viewer's eyes. Nothing about this indicates that there's a difference or that this is an actual
What even
celestial
thinking
body.
about
You
the
may
sun?
default to mentioning the fact that it's bright inside and Dagon's domain is meant to evoke the idea of a beach-like environment and thus would need a light source, but that's kind of just appealing to reality to make an argument that doesn't warrant that. Most domains are going to have some source of light produced within them because the sorcerer or curse using the barrier wants to be able to see. With such little evidence, to say that Dagon is creating a sun, and a real one at that, isn't conducive to a solid point to stand on. Sorry to all the Dagon fans out there, I'm wishing you guys well, but the notion of an actual sun existing within his domain isn't very substantiated. Now, as I've attempted to make clear on numerous occasions, when taking into account the typical fighting style and character of both parties, the Upper Moons absolutely mop the floor with the disaster curses. There are some out of character,
That's a crazy
plug the
statement.
controller in kind of moves you could make to get JJK the win, like immediately opening with the domain for Mahito in order to catch all of their opponents off guard. But the scenario only takes place in the most contrived and unfair situations that I could possibly dream up. In an average, typical scenario, one that would really closely adhere to reality, the Upper Moons win 10 out of 10 times. If you enjoyed this video and haven't already, check out
Okay.
these
Hey, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Also, tell me in the comments down below if you think that the Upper Moons really do win or Disaster Curses take it. I'm gonna see you on the next one. Peace.